In this video, we're going to check out Snapseed, a photo editing app for Android and iOS devices. Coming right up. What's up everybody, Phil with Bull City Pictures here. Today we're going to look at Snapseed, an app to edit on the go. I'm going to go ahead and open a photo here. It supports both JPEG and RAW. You can't see that RAW file, it's an Android issue. But basically I have this RAW file that I'm going to open. It's a picture of this dark-eyed junco during a recent snowstorm. This app will allow you to be able to edit RAW photos, like I said, as well as JPEG. You can see this is a RAW. We've opened up now into our RAW editor, where we can do some basic RAW adjustments, just like you would do in the Develop module in Lightroom. You can see exposure, highlights, shadows, temperature. Actually, there are two ways that you can change the temperature, but I'm going to go ahead and raise the exposure on this one a little bit. Looks like it's probably a little more than a stop underexposed. So you can see the exposures being raised here. And you just basically click and drag over, or tap and drag over to raise or lower. So I'm going to adjust the highlights here, bring those highlights down a little bit. And again, you can see it just drag over to the left. That will lower the highlights. If you move over to the right, like we're going to do with the shadows here, you can see those shadows will be raised. So this is, again, our kind of raw edits. I'm going to go through and change the color temperature. Looks like it just might be slightly off, and change the white balance. So just tapping on the tablet. Some of this I'll do on the tablet. Some of it I'll do with the icon you can see on the desktop with the little yellow showing you what I've been doing. But basically that temperature looks pretty good. You can also use that white balance feature to select pre-selected white balance values. And there's also a color picker. So you can pick something neutral or white, and it will adjust the color balance for you automatically. So this looks pretty good for our raw edits. We're going to go into the main mode, which is what you would see if you're editing a JPEG. There are looks that they call them over here that you can see that you can apply like a preset. You can also hide those. I'm going to hide those, and then let's go into the main piece of this application. That's kind of the edit module. You can see we have the develop module where for raw, and then next we have tune image. But look at all the features that you have here. Basically there are 15 or 20 different things that you can do, a lot of which you could do in Lightroom, also in Lightroom Mobile. So this is really a full feature editing software, just happens to be for mobile devices. And this is the tablet view, by the way. The phone view is a little bit different. But I'm going to go ahead and go into the tune image and make some adjustments that look very similar to what we did in the raw edit module, but they're slightly different and they don't seem to have as great an effect. So you can see we've got brightness and contrast and saturation. We did highlights and shadows previously, also warmth, which kind of affects the temperature. But I'm going to add a little saturation here to this one. Bring up the saturation just a little bit. And next I'm going to go through and look at the highlights. I'm going to bring those highlights down just a little bit more. We did that when we edited the raw, but this will allow you a little bit of finer control. So I'll bring those highlights down just a little bit more. Also going to want to adjust the shadows like we had previously done. I want to bring those shadows up just a little bit more. So we'll go ahead and, again, you can see me dragging on the screen this time. You just kind of drag over to move the slider either left or right, depending on which way you drag. So that looks pretty good. There's also an auto adjustment, which you can use. I tend not to use it. I'll just go ahead and make the adjustments myself. So at this point, I'm pretty happy with what we have here. I'm going to go back in and move on to the next piece of editing. And I like to do things in a very specific way. I like to add details next, but you can do these pretty much in any order that you want, whatever order makes sense to you. With details, you can add structure and sharpening. Structure is pretty much like clarity in Lightroom. So I'll add a little structure here to this one. And you can see it's kind of making it a bit clearer. And then I'll also go ahead and add just a little bit of sharpening. There is no noise reduction, so you don't want to go too crazy with the sharpening. Otherwise, you'll get some really noisy pictures. Hopefully, they'll use or add noise reduction in a future release, but that looks pretty good to me here. So I'm going to go ahead and tap on that check box to let them know that we're done. And then there are some other things that you can do as you go through and kind of look at these edit features. You can crop it. So generally I crop a lot of my wildlife images. Cropping is pretty simple and intuitive. You just drag the kind of the corners. And I'm going to give this a kind of a rule of thirds look so that I've got the eye of the bird in that top third. You can just drag it over the image and make sure that you have the crop that you want. And then once you're done, you can go ahead and click that checkbox. And now you've got that image that's cropped. So we'll do a few more things to this image, but again, just wanted to highlight some of the things that you can do here. You can make this one, if you wanted to go like a film noir kind of look, make it black and white, and there are a bunch of different things you can do there. Grunge, drama. There's a healing tool which actually works pretty well. So I'm going to go ahead and try to remove that branch at the top right, which is grayish, and then just use that healing tool to go through and highlight what I want to remove. And click on that checkbox and you can see it kind of copied over part of the other branch. It kind of looks a little bit more natural. Sometimes it works well, sometimes it doesn't. You just have to experiment with it. So that's the healing feature. So I'm going to go through now and look at the curves. So this is, again, pretty full featured. You can change the curves. I want to adjust the midtones here a little bit. So I'm not completely happy with the way that they look. And this is a traditional curve adjustment. Same thing that you would do in Lightroom. I think that to my eye, that looks pretty good right about there. So the curves have been adjusted. You can also look at different styles. Those are presets basically, or looks. You can choose different ways to make those changes. You can also look at the channels. We're looking at RGB right now, red, green, and blue, but they have separate red, green, blue, and also a luminance channel. So when you're adjusting curves, you can make those changes as well. And that's it. It looks pretty good to me. So now I want to save it or export it or share it. You can share it with your favorite social media. You can save it, export it, and then export as. So if you want to save it as something different, you can go ahead and do that. I'm just going to save this one, and you can see that it's going to prepare the photo and institute those changes that we made. You can see each of those types of changes that we made now being applied. And once you're done, you've got your photo. It's been saved now to your device. So you can go through and look at that if you'd like to. So this, again, is Snapseed. It's available for Android and iOS. It's a free app. It's a great app that I use quite a bit when I'm traveling. It's Phil with Bold City Pictures. I hope you enjoyed this app review. There will be more of these in the future. If you're new here or you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. If you do subscribe, please click on that bell icon. That will allow you to get notified whenever we go live. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again in the next episode.